Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Conversations with Natalie. I'm so excited to bring you a guest with me today. She has flipped in all from the United States. She's in the afternoon. It's lovely, chilled, and her name is Sheral. And she has, how can I put this? A life. She has lived a life and she has had a lot of experiences, and I'm hoping to get a couple of her gold nuggets out of her head to share with you. So we'll see what happens. We're just going to have a conversation. We're going to see what happens, and let's see if we can get those gold nuggets out of her head, because I know she's got them. They are there. We just got to find them. So welcome, Sheral. It's great to have you here with us, and I know you've flown in via Zoom all the way from Missouri. So sort of, what did you say, slap bang in the middle of the States. So welcome to the UK.
Well, thank you. I feel very, first of all, it's a privilege. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest. And yes, I've hopped across the pond from the middle of the US, and I'm very pleased to be here. So thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here. So tell us a little bit about where you started and how you've started, because I know you're writing a book. I'm wanting you to share with us this book that you're writing, but that's come from somewhere. So where have you sort of started?
It comes from the middle of a scary place. My mind is a lot like a Monty Python sketch. You just have no idea where anything is going to go, and it's likely going to be a little wacky and a little disturbing at the same time.
Wacky and disturbing is good.
That seems to be my theme, and it has been in just about everything I've ever done. I had grown up in southern Minnesota, of all places, and it was an interesting life. I broke an ankle during a high school musical, and I ended up with the wrong leg operated on, and things just sort of went from there. That's the direction my life would go, where someone would tell you to break a leg in theater, and I literally would do it. I had to learn things the hard way.
Breaking a leg in theater is supposed to be good luck.
It is supposed to be good luck. And, you know, a lot of people could probably say having your leg broken and then having the surgeon operate on the wrong leg. And I was in a cast both legs for years and years. And they would think that would probably be a horrible stretch of luck. And I would agree with them. It wasn't pleasant, but thinking back on it, had it not happened, I don't know that I would have gone the directions that I've gone and ended up in the place where I am right now, because I was very focused on sports and just going a completely different direction. When I lost use of the legs, I didn't get to go skiing. I didn't get to go to the high school dances. The one thing that I could do was speak. So I got even more involved in theater, but more so in speech debate, and kind of fine-tuned the orating skills at a young age, and decided that I was going to be Wolfman Jack.
Okay, you're going to need to explain who that is.
Wolfman Jack is probably the greatest radio DJ to have ever lived. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of seeing American Graffiti, but the very big bushy bearded Wolfman looking DJ in that movie, that is Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack did various television shows, Soul Train. He actually was on a Mexican radio station. This is his key to fame, that in the United States, the amount of power that they broadcast at would have been completely illegal. But he was just over the border at a Mexican radio station, and they would crank that thing, I guess, to make, we'll just keep making movie references, Spinal Tap. He cranked it to 11 and then some. And so his signal could be picked up all across the United States, into parts of Canada, of course, down into Central and South America. And this man was crazy. But I spent more nights growing up with the Wolfman than I did with my family, with friends, with what have you. He became my friend, and he had that powerful connection. He, and then Casey Kasem was actually the voice of Scooby-Doo. So I had decided at a very young age I was going to be the first female Wolfman Jack. And I won't say exactly how old I am. Let's just say it's somewhere close to the 50-year range, give or take a few years. When I was growing up, there weren't, female DJs. There were sidekicks, there were news gals, but there wasn't anyone of any real significance within the radio industry. So I didn't know it at the time. And I think not knowing it might be the secret to success. Ignorance is bliss, but ignorance sometimes is the key to making your dreams happen. When you don't know, you're not supposed to be able to do it.
But you also had an idol or a hero or almost a goal to aspire to, because like you said, you wanted to be the female version of Wolfman Jack. So you knew what you wanted to achieve. You just didn't realize that women weren't supposed to be DJs at that level.
And women really didn't get a lot of opportunity to do it. It's much better now, thank heavens. But
we've also got all, internet, YouTube, podcasts, radio show says, no, you can't be on the radio show. That's okay. I'll just go create my own and do my own. There's much more choice now. And
you'd be surprised, though. You'd be surprised how many women don't choose to do it, or they need to have a male counterpart or someone to help them. And I say, bullshit. You don't. You can do it. You can do it.
But it's not because there's no opportunities, is they've made the choice not to do it. Whereas in the 80s and the 90s, there wasn't the opportunity, or even before that, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, there wasn't an opportunity, or there wasn't a choice to do it. Whereas now, you don't really have an excuse not to do it. You just then choose not to do it because of whatever. So did you go into radio?
I did. I went ahead and I met a boy.
Oh, it's always about a boy.
Always about a boy. And we ended up getting married and moving to Shreveport, Louisiana. And we weren't married when I moved down there, but he's an Air Force pilot, retired Air Force pilot. And so we had been stationed down at Barksdale Air Force Base. And I had zero radio experience. I had a little bit of college radio experience. And then I managed to talk my way into a position with a public radio station at one of the local campuses in Shreveport. I knew that wasn't going to last. That wasn't, I was never going to be Wolfman Jack, a public radio station. So
but we have to start somewhere. You always have to start somewhere.
Well, I decided I needed to get over to the commercial radio side, and there was an opportunity for a part-time overnight weekend gig at a country and Western radio station. And I had zero knowledge of country music. and I lied myself silly. I ended up, a friend of ours, of my husband's and mine, had an extensive country music CD collection, and I spent an entire weekend learning about how there's tragedy always happening in the rain, near a train, with a truck, with your dog, and with your mama. And a lot of alcohol is involved. So that was my weekend, basically, with Merle Haggard. We'll just, it
Good
was
old Merle.
interesting. I got the gig. I ended up doing the weekend overnight session at the country station, and it wasn't but a few months that had gone by when their morning show uh, co-host was leaving. She was leaving, and she's the one that had hired me. She had been filling in as the temporary program director. So she left. We had a new program director in, and I decided to throw my hat into the auditions. And lo and behold, I got it. So I was all of 23 years old at the #1 morning show in town, and stepping in to fill some big shoes. What I didn't realize is, at the age of 23, was just a mite bit thinner than I am now, and a little prettier. And I wasn't hired to be a co-host. I was hired to look good next to the male counterpart, and it turned into a very ugly situation very quickly. I was sexually harassed. There was a lot of intimidation. They finally fired me, but I was smart enough that in the middle of being fired and humiliated, to ask them to give me a waiver on my non-compete, because it is very standard in the industry that when you no longer work for that station, you can't go to a competing station within somewhere between a 75 and 100-mile radius for a year's time. That's pretty standard in the industry. And since they had told me that I had zero talent, that I wasn't funny, that I was never going to make it in radio, I asked them, I said, well, perhaps I can at least try to improve my game at some little, farm station, some hole in the wall station, maybe go back to public radio. Would it be all right? Would they be willing to write up a waiver ending that non-compete agreement? And they did. And I promptly took it across the street to the competitor and managed to get a morning show there. And we beat that station for the first time, I think, ever, that they had ever been beaten by this station. And it felt good.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes. I mean,
karma.
well done, for in the midst of harassing and being fired and all this stuff that goes with harassment and bullying, essentially bullying in the workplace, to stand up in a way for yourself and get this non-compete wavered.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm hoping
I do. Yeah. That waiver, to have that whole thing just nullified.
Well, how amazing that is. And then when you went to the other radio station, were you your own co-host? Were you then a host in your own right?
I was an equal. Oh, yes. Yeah. My partner was fantastic. We had a lot of fun together. It was a good ride. He had the same morning show partner for quite some time, and he was ready for a fresh change. So it was, they weren't certain that I was the person, but
they gave you a chance.
I got the shot, and I took advantage of it. I think the biggest lesson that I learned in that whole experience is it doesn't matter what's happening around you. And it can be ugly. It can be the ugliest of situations, which it was over at the other station. I really was miserable, and it was sort of a relief when they fired me, but I just didn't know how I was going to continue on, with my dream, what my professional goals were. When you're in the midst of all that chaos, the important thing is to just keep listening, because every hurdle that life throws at you is ultimately an opportunity. You just have to listen for that opening.
Mhm.
And I heard it when they were talking about, I have no business doing radio. I had zero talent. And I thought to myself, how in the heck am I going to get into another position? Especially, I mean, they're telling me I'm no good, but yet they've got me bound by this non-compete. And that's when it hit me. Play, play into it. You're absolutely right. I'm horrible. I probably need to learn. Could I have the opportunity at, a station that would be absolutely no threat to them? And
And
their own arrogance
mm.
was their downfall.
And this is a great thing, because you, at that point, you had a choice: give up or make a plan. And this is something we've all had, these life experiences, shall I say, that have knocked us, that have ripped the carpet from underneath us, that have been awful, that have been demeaning, and all this. And it's, what do we do with them? Now, some of us, like me in my case, it took me 20 odd years to learn to listen and to learn to do it. But we always have a choice, and it's never too late to make a choice. So anybody who's listening and saying, yeah, but you were in your 20s, you did it. I'm now in my 40s, 50s, or 60s. You know what? It's not too late now to take all these lessons and make the choice. So you now knock the socks off this radio station that were no good. And how long were you at this other radio station, the new one?
Not terribly long. Within 2 years, Chris and I got transferred. And
Life of of an Air Force wife.
so everything that I had been building and working on in this dream life that I had suddenly was being taken away. And we ended up being transferred to the middle of Missouri. And I was about an hour and a half away from the nearest large radio station, which would have been here in Kansas City. We don't live in little Warrensburg anymore, which is really close to where the Air Force Base is. I made sure of that the second time around, and that's a whole other story. But so we moved up, and I had a brand new baby. I had a lot of postpartum depression issues that went undiagnosed. And when your hormones are off, I mean, as women, we're pretty sensitive when people, start going, oh, your hormones must be off. In this case, the hormones really were off, and they were off the charts. And it's not a horrible thing to ask for help, but we're taught to just sort of ignore it, that you're a mom, you'll get over it, buck up, be an adult, take it. So I've got this new baby. I had a lot of postpartum depression. It was a position that my husband got transferred into where it basically ended his career. My career was up in flames, and it led down a really seriously ugly path of borderline alcoholism, and we ended up divorcing. The best thing I could have done for myself was, and for him and our daughter, was to just say enough, and I need a fresh start. So we ended up divorcing. I moved up to Kansas City with the daughter. I got some counseling. I got away from the group that I had been running with. And I managed to snag a full-time position doing commercial production with a radio complex in Kansas City. It wasn't the on air that I had wanted, but it was a step closer, and it would give me a foot in the door to get my life back on track.
So you were slowly doing radio, slowly getting in for you. I think you said 15 years when we spoke previously.
Just a little over 15 years.
And you had your own show in that time?
Oh, goodness, yeah. Between, I co-hosted the two morning shows in my 20s. Then I had my own show with a station in Kansas City. It was a midday slot. I had that for a while along with commercial production, and would fill in periodically for uh, various stations for some of their full-time people on the air or on a weekend. I did character voices for some of the morning shows in Kansas City. And so it was a good run, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And ultimately, every time that I tried to get back into a position, I had a situation where there was a supervisor. He was trying to get back on the air as well, and he would, unbeknownst to me, sabotage every attempt that I made. So it sounds like there's a lot of horrible people in radio, and a lot of chauvinistic, harassing men. That's not the case. I just happen to find a few of them. You'll find them in any industry, but I could find, if I were to find one, I could find 10 that were so incredibly helpful and instrumental in helping me move forward. A lot of great mentors, but you'll find buttholes in every industry.
Oh yes, they are there.
Men, women, it doesn't matter. There's always somebody with an insecurity. And the one thing that we don't see is when we've got these hurdles coming at us. And so, like in this case where I couldn't get back on the air, it was a supervisor that was a hurdle, my stork, so to speak, a situational taker of rational knowledge. But what I didn't understand was I was his hurdle too. And you don't tend to look at what's going on with the other person. You only ever look at a situation through your own, eyes. But when you take the time and look and see what's happening there, if I had that information, it could have changed the way I dealt with things or handled things, or I might have had, more success. I could have been on the air sooner because I would have found a way to go around him, or I might have been a little more understanding rather than confrontational, because it did get quite confrontational with him.
This is one of those, if I knew then what I know now.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm writing the book. It is very much an unconventional primer for leaping over life's hurdles. And it is chock full of the lessons that I've learned along the way, whether it was in the radio industry, whether it was within the marriage and ultimately the divorce. I did remarry him a second time, by the way. It did work out. And I'm keeping him this time.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I think he'll be glad to hear that too. So. But, and then with career changes, I didn't just stay in radio. I ended up in the wine and spirits industry. I didn't even start pursuing that until I was in my 40s. And then...
So that's quite interesting, because you said there was an issue with drink, and now you're in the wine and spirits industry. That's quite a big temptation, or had enough time gone past, or is it so different that it's not a difficult industry to be in?
Oh no, it's an incredibly difficult industry to be in if you have an issue with alcohol. Fortunately, I don't have an addictive personality. When I decided I was done, and I went cold turkey off of it. The appeal for the wine and spirits for me was I have a streak where everything is interesting. I love to learn. And I think the thing that I love to learn the most about is about people, what's important to them, where they come from, what the culture is like, what their history is like. And one of the things that I found by accident, it started with wine, was that industry involves everything from history, agriculture, chemistry, culture, different geographical areas. all combined with a little Disney and Harry Potter magic, and it's amazing. And there's always something new coming in, and how does the artistry fit in with do I age it in this, in new French oak, or used oak? Do I want to do it in stainless steel fermentation? Do I want to add malolactic fermentation? I'm geeking out now, I know that, but there was always something new and interesting. And I also found that you get more of these fun conversations when people have a glass of wine with dinner, or over cocktails. My specialties are wine, and then I'm also specialized in bourbon. I love whiskeys. And
Oh,
while I know
yes.
about scotches and Japanese whiskeys, Canadian blends,
Scottish. Don't forget the Scottish whiskey.
already, that's why I said Scotch.
Ah, yes. Scotch for the Scottish whiskey. Yes.
They don't, you don't even have to designate Scottish. If you say Scotch,
That.
Scotch.
So now you have taught me something.
It is just like a bourbon. Bourbon is American.
Yeah.
You can't have a bourbon from another country. Now you can have different whiskeys, you can have different ryes.
So Scotch is Scottish whiskey. So you can't have Scotch from a different country.
Correct.
Ah,
Now
thank you for that.
the Japanese do a version that is very similar to Scotch. In fact, they'll import the grains from Scotland in order to make their whiskeys. But the difference there is that they're aging them in their own local Japanese woods. So that the barrels are made of their own,
and they can't call it Scotch.
Yeah,
they have to call it
because they're not from Scotland. They're not in Scotland.
I never knew that. Mm-hmm. I never knew that. I love whiskey, and it's always been Scottish whiskey, not thinking or realizing, because I've never really looked into it. I just drink it.
And most people do. And that's the fun part about it. So if I can toss a little nugget out like this, that lights up my entire world. And no wonder I like you. You're a whiskey gal. Of course I like you then.
And I love bourbon as well. I love bourbon and Jim Beam and all that. And
you're a Beam girl, are you? Excellent. Is just the straight Jim Beam, or do you like the Yellowstone brands? Because Beam has a bazillion.
Now you've put me on the spot. I have. Hey, if it says whiskey on it, I'm drinking it. I don't mind where it comes from. All right, I'm just not very much of a connoisseur, but I do like whiskey, and I must admit this, and this is most probably going to make some people throw stuff at their computers, but I do love Jim Beam in eggnog.
I got no issue with that.
I do like that, but I also do like it neat as well. But I do like it in eggnog. Well, mind you, any whiskey in eggnog's good. So
I have zero issue with that whatsoever.
Oh,
I mean, if you're going to spike your eggnog, why not put some whiskey in it?
Of course, but the thing is, I know that the Scots don't like you to mix. They like, you're meant to have the whiskey neat. And my husband was a whiskey drinker. He doesn't drink it much anymore, just because he's not used to it and he drives a lot. But it's very much it's about being neat. And it's like, no, you can't put anything with it. It's like, why not? It's
I don't
neat.
know how to break it to him. There are no rules. And one of the things as a wine and spirits educator that I always teach people is when you said you're not a connoisseur, do you know what you like? Mm-hmm. That's all you need to know, honestly. So long as you're enjoying it, it doesn't. Now there are things where I will look and go, I don't know if I drink it that way, but to each their own. As long as you don't put it in front of me, and as long as it's not a couple $100 allocated bourbon or Scotch, as long as it's not mine, I don't care what you do with it. Have at it. If you're gonna pour a Coke product or Dr. Pepper or something into it, I'm not going to give you my really high-end stuff because you're not drinking it for the flavor profile anyway. You're drinking it just because this is fun and I like the mashup of these flavors. So then I've got something for you that'll work better for a cocktail. But no, I get, I mean, there's one of the biggest issues that I had, and one of the biggest reasons that I got into the wine and spirits industry. Well, first, my mom was drinking boxed wine that she had in her fridge for over a year. I wouldn't even use that to make, salad dressing. There's no, that's disgusting. So I got into it originally to help her. And as I got going, realized that there's a lot of people that were very intimidated. They didn't know what to pick, and they weren't certain.
It almost, well, especially like here in Europe, you got the French wines, you have the Canadian wines. It is almost a different world that if you're not brought up with it, it's something you don't necessarily understand. And knowing, there's even sort of certain wines that go with certain foods and don't have a German wine with this. And, it has a lot of history. There's a lot of knowledge behind it, but there's also a lot of expectations, I think, and almost rules and regulations, not necessarily rules and regulations. And I think that's what people feel intimidated about, because it's do you admit that, oh my God, I know absolutely nothing, but I know what I like to drink? Or
that's the only thing you need to know. This contrived snobbery is what really started to drive me, and why I really needed to educate myself with it. There are no rules. That's it. There aren't. If you want to pair a Gewürztraminer with your cheeseburger and French fries, go for it. If you like it,
I love that.
If your taste buds say that's the thing for me, go for it. Now, I can, along the way, I can try to ease you into a few other things. I mean, we can start with, if you want your really salty potato chips, and then we can kind of move you into an Alsatian Pinot Gris, and perhaps move you then into more of a richer, buttery Chardonnay. We go from a Burgundian into a hit you in the face Napa oak chard. It's a beautiful pairing, by the way. Potato chips, Chardonnay. Oh, it really is. It is. And I sound like such a redneck, but that became my focus.
But as you said, it's your choice, and that's what you enjoy.
And, well, the beauty is I can explain why that pairing works, because I've educated myself to it. But most people, the snobs of the industry, whiskeys and wines, have decided, no, you have to do it this way, and you have to do. Says who?
The snobs of the industry.
It's what you like. And they wouldn't have, a lot of these snobs in the industry wouldn't still have their job if it weren't for people drinking what they like. So if you want to really help the consumer figure out what their palate is, and I can typically figure out within 6 pours exactly what you're going to like. That gives me a baseline for varietal, or for region, or for the oaking process. Then we can start expanding your horizons a little bit. We can figure out what kind of foods you like, and I'll go, okay, you like eating this with this? All right, cool. Now take a bite of that. Here, take a drink of water, get your cracker, cleanse your palate. All right, cool. Eat that. That's awesome. Now take that bit of food, try it with this. Take that other wine, try it with this. What do you think of that? And then I get another baseline. And you can start moving a different direction and expanding horizons. And all of a sudden, you've got a consumer who has fallen in love with all these different things and is excited to learn more. But you can also go, okay, you like Pinot Noir, or you like You like Alsatian, you like semi-dry Rieslings from Mosel. Uh, you like a lovely claret. You can go ahead and introduce them to small little areas, even as something as diverse as California wines. You can start saying, okay, you prefer something softer from Sonoma, as opposed to, which is going to be probably more Merlot based than and fruit forward, than you like that heavy tannic structured Napa Oak Knoll cab. And so you can put them in an area and they can start trying different things from that region. And pretty soon they start trying different things from those producers, the different wineries or distilleries, and they start expanding their horizons, and they're opening up to an entirely new world. And that it's that learning process, that connection that just lights my fire, whether it's wine and spirits or radio or the book. If you can connect with that one person and all of a sudden expand their horizons,
give them an adventure. Give them an adventure, especially with wines and food, but also just through listening to them, through having that conversation, is, as you said, expanding their horizons. But this is offering adventure.
But you just hit on the key when you said listening, because you can't figure out what their palate is, what their preferences are, if you don't listen. You ask the question and you listen to the answer. I ask, okay, when you're drinking, what do you drink? And you've told me you like Jim Beam products. Okay, so what do you drink when you're not drinking booze?
Water.
Okay, anything else periodically?
Coffee. Just water and coffee, because I'm going on a no sugar kick. So water and coffee.
So you're doing black coffee?
No, that I cheat, and I have coconut sugar in that.
And that tells me something else about your palate. You like that sweetness that comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that gives me, you don't like the bitter, you like the sweetness. Okay. So you do coffee. What type of coffee bean? And is it dark roast? Is it light?
Oh, it's light. I don't like strong coffee, so it's quite light. It's usually instant, or sometimes I will make a filter coffee, but it's a 3, and it's not a particular bean. It's usually what's on special or what I see on the shelves that I feel like getting. But what I do focus on is normally fair trade and ethically resourced. So, but I do like Colombian and Kenyan.
You just gave me everything I need. You like a light roast, so you don't like the heavy, robust flavor to it. You like the flavor, but the light roasts have the most caffeine in them. So you want something fun and energized. You want something that's easy, but you want something that's fair. Man, I could just get you so hooked up with so many different wines and bourbons right now. But that's the thing, when you listen, and I listened to what you were saying with the instant. You don't want anything too froofy, too what you want. You want something that's approachable. Mm-hmm. And when you train your ear to listen and connect in that sort of a way, oh, we could be getting into some serious trouble, Natalie. I promise you.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm going to hold you to that one day. I'm going to hold you to that one day.
Or I'll come skipping across the pond. I'll just bring it. Let's go. We'll go pub crawling. It'll be fun.
Oh yes, definitely. With the scotch and the whiskey. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Well, all bourbons and all scotches are whiskeys, but not all whiskeys are scotch.
Yeah, but I was talking about the scotch whiskey and the whiskey.
Do you like more of the peated style, the Islay, or do you like the Highland, which is less, doesn't have that peated? The smoky.
I have no idea. It's more Glenfiddich. Glenfiddich is sort of the brand that I have. famous grouse. So I've had a
Yeah,
few of the
see,
good ones, but I can't remember what they're called, you know.
you're not a big fan of say like Lafroig or Oban or
I'm sure we haven't
Talisker.
tried it. I'm sure we haven't
Okay.
tried it. So
My guess is you are not a peated girl. So that tells me a lot too.
cool. Well, this sounds like a conversation for another time to carry on with. And there's a
Correct.
promise
We
of
could
one of
we
us
could use
hopping over
that,
the
but
pond and going somewhere where there's alcohol. Yes.
this is not alcohol, by the way. This is just coffee. So
So you say, but okay, I believe you.
it's coffee and it's got a lot of collagen protein MCT powder in it. So
So you then worked in the wine and whiskey industry to help, and you picked that to help people to. It sounds like people fascinate you. It sounds like you really enjoy working with people. So let me ask you a question here, and I'm an introvert, and it's something that I am learning to live with and work with, is being an introvert, and I like to work with introverts. Do you class yourself more as an extrovert and being around people, or are you an introvert who just likes working a lot with people?
people that know me will find this very difficult. Well, people that know me won't find it difficult to believe. But on the surface, everyone thinks that I am this extreme extrovert. And that is something that I've had to learn over the years. I I have found that the easiest way to hide is by putting out as much information as you can. And it's almost like throwing out chaff. People hit all the stuff that you want them to know, and they think you're an open book, but they don't get to the very hardcore of yourself, the sensitive side, the vulnerable side. And that is something that I'm also in the process of trying to improve upon, because our vulnerabilities are what make us interesting, and our vulnerabilities are what make us strong later on. And if you don't share those vulnerabilities, you don't have a way to connect. We're all going through, we all when we're having our problems or challenges, we tend to believe that we're going through it alone. But I don't know that there is a situation or a problem that someone else hasn't experienced as well. A lot of people have experienced as well. It doesn't minimize it, but when you know you're not alone, it it helps you find solutions faster. It makes you feel less disconnected, and it's a huge part in getting yourself either over, under, or around that hurdle. Heck, sometimes it'll get you through the hurdle. You may have to pick a couple of splinters out here and there,
But
but so long as, yeah.
it's having that courage and being vulnerable in asking for help or reaching out. And it can almost feel like a weakness if you've got to ask for help and reach out. And this is something that I struggled with a lot, is asking for help. I was brought up that this is, you don't ask for help, you just get on with it. And the first time I actually asked for help in my business was 2 years ago. And all that time I've been trying to do it on my own. And guess what? You can't do it on your own. No man is an island. And this is something that I've been learning about, is when we feel vulnerable, that is, and you said it's a strength, it's a power, it's something that we can use, but we almost brought up to not be vulnerable, to not show it, and to put these guards up or shields or walls or whatever. But yet, just by asking for help, how much power is in that? To say, you know what, I'm stuck here, can you help me? Or I'm having this experience, how do I get around it? What can I do? Can you help me? There's power in that. But yet we think, oh no, I can't ask for help because they're going to look at me as weak.
And that's the biggest lie we're told. And I almost feel like we're told that by people that don't want us to get ahead, that they haven't figured out how to get ahead, and they don't want you to get ahead either.
And I think also it's a protection. I know that my mother wanted to keep me safe and to protect me and didn't want me to get hurt or anything. So it wasn't out of meanness. It was just,
No. A lot of times it's not malicious.
But I do think that also later on in life, it can be malicious when, like you said, people don't want you to get ahead.
It can be, but I think
it's
I think overall it's not. And the whole premise of a self-made individual is a lie. No one is self-made. And it's when we do ask for help. I'll let you in on a little secret, because I hadn't asked for help up until recently. And it had the power to change my life again and put it in a new trajectory. When you ask someone for help, that is one of the most flattering and respectful things that you can give to an individual. Because when you ask that person for help, you're letting them know, A, you respect them, B, you think they are knowledgeable, and that they're doing it right. They have something huge to offer. That is a huge compliment. And most people want to help other people. I know it doesn't seem like it in this crazy world we're living in, but most people do genuinely want to help, and they will give of themselves freely. The other thing, when you ask for help, that makes it so strong and powerful is you finally open up, and you're open to receiving and hearing and listening. You're finally listening, and that part of your brain turns on that's taking in the information for a change that's going to help you, instead of that poor little hamster on the wheel spinning and spinning and spinning until he passes out because he just doesn't know how to get you there. So you've done two incredibly powerful things by A, giving that gift of respect up to someone else, and B, finally opening up your receptors to further your way along the path to the finish line.
Definitely. And vulnerability is a superpower. I'm just going to say it. It is a superpower, and to use it. So you've now mentioned this book, and I'm sure people are going, what book? So what book?
It should be coming out shortly. We're doing a few touch-ups, and then we'll send to the publisher. But the book will be called The Frog in Your Throat, the unconventional primer for getting over life's hurdles. And it goes through a lot of what we've been discussing here in our conversation. The tough lessons I've had to learn along the way, and how to pass them on to you. So it doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s, like I was, struggling, trying to figure out how to get this done, or somewhere around the 50 mark. There has to be a little mystery there, somewhere around the 50 mark, and completely starting over, because I did launch a business, a copywriting business, and it wasn't for me. So I've just recently relaunched again in middle age, all over again. It felt like a failure at the time. It's not. There are no failures unless you give up. It's a learning experience. And so it gives you some insight as to the struggles that you may face along the way, when the kids are grown and you're thinking to yourself, I don't have anything to offer. Oh my goodness, that's when you have far more to offer than you had back in your early 20s, when you were young and bubbly and energetic, but you just didn't have any life experience. You just didn't know. But for those that are young and bubbly and don't have much life experience, it offers some insights that I learned along the way there that can maybe save you some of the struggles and the hurt that I went through along the way. And it shows you a clear a clear path to getting, like I said, either over, under, around, or through the hurdles. But as long as you're making forward progression, you'll get to that finish line.
And it doesn't matter. You're never too old. It's never
Mm-mm,
too late. And this
mm-mm.
this is something that I'm noticing a lot, is so many people are starting businesses or feel like they're starting over in their late 40s, their 50s, even 60s. I know some
Absolutely.
people who are starting their own business at 60. And I think this is something, the crazy world that we live in right now. We have the crazy going on, but
Mhm.
we also have opportunities where we can start these businesses now. And rightly or wrongly, but I don't think these opportunities were available 20, 30 years ago to start your own business from your home, unless it was, sewing or the traditional type. But businesses that are being started now are through people's life experiences, through the
Mhm.
knowledge that they've gathered. And it's something that I think is amazing, because you're never too old and it's
No,
never
you
too
have.
late.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. You have all of this life experience and knowledge that you've gained over the years. You no longer have to worry about, a baby getting up at 3 in the morning, teething, or what have you. You're finally at a position where you've got more time, and you're thinking, well, I'm too old to do anything. That is not the case. In fact, I can't remember who did the study, but there was a scientific study that was done, and the information released that they're finding that people aren't at their peak productivity levels mentally and energetically with business until they hit their 60s. So I'm not even at my peak yet. I am that they're literally your best potential professionally is in your 60s. Why wouldn't you take this opportunity now? Why not? And you don't know, oh, I don't know technology. That's what those young 20 somethings are for.
Or
They know
learn,
technology.
or learn.
That's exactly how you learn. I mean, we have YouTube. We have this crazy thing called the internet. You've got a phone that I need my glasses to see, but a phone that has 100 times more power than the Atari computer or the Texas Instruments Commodore VIC-20 computer that I thought was amazing when it first came out as a kid. Use it. Ask your grandkids to show you a couple of apps. My kids are mad at me because I text faster with one thumb than they do with two hands. It's you're at your absolute prime. You'd be crazy not to do it.
And one of the great things is that when you learn a new skill and when you learn something new, what you're actually doing is you helping your brain to grow. You helping your brain to almost go younger. So learn the new skills. Now, technology at times just makes me want to throw my phone and throw the laptop, and that's it. I'm going to go live in the bush. I quit.
I won't show you my screen on my phone.
But I want to build a business, therefore I need to learn. I was told last year, you need to learn to edit your YouTube videos that I make. And for 6 months, I'm like, nope, 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 nope. Guess what? I can now add music onto videos. I've learned how to edit. I've learned how to take the video off and do the voice. I'm learning. Hollywood won't employ me just yet.
But if you
But
don't
these are
want to even
skills
do
that I'm
that,
learning. And it's fun. I'm actually have a lot of fun doing it.
but if you don't want to, I mean, if you are truly against it or you don't have the time, that's when you get something like Fiverr or Upworks. There's so many.
Virtual assistants, they do all of this. So the thing is, there's always either somebody who can help you or learn. So that excuse is not really an excuse. It's
Nope.
just a reason you're giving yourself for not doing something.
You're letting it become a stork, a situational taker of your rational knowledge. Don't let that excuse turn into a stork or one of life's hurdles. Get rid of it.
Exactly. So where do you envision yourself over the next few years? Because you're writing a book. You mentioned when we were talking beforehand that you want to create a podcast.
Yes.
Speaking is something that you're passionate about, and you wanting to share your story and share your knowledge. So where do you sort of envision yourself in the next few years?
Probably sitting in a hot tub sipping wine in the Black Hills, but or coming across
Right, let me know where that is, please. I'll come join you.
You know, drinking whiskey with you in the UK. I envision, I literally envision myself everywhere. The beauty of what I'm trying to accomplish is I can do this anywhere. So it allows me to do the one thing that I love more than anything else, which is connecting with people and learning about who they are, where they are, and what makes a community tick. And that's where the podcast comes in too. The podcast is going to be launched here within the next couple of months, maybe a month or so, you know, pretty much in line with the book. And it's the power of a 5-minute conversation. Now, granted, we're having more than a 5-minute conversation, but it touches back on what you and I had been speaking about, where we'll just be chit-chatting away, and all of a sudden, something that you or I will say that we won't even remember 5 minutes from now has the power to just, boom, transform your life. You get an idea, or you suddenly, you know, say you've got a situation where someone is very depressed. You know, you have the power to save a life with just small talk with a total stranger. That's the type of thing that I want to explore with you, with anybody who's listening in, to show them where that power comes from, and possibly give them that one little kernel that elevates their life personally or professionally as well. There are so many of these stories, and it doesn't matter whether it's someone famous or, you know, someone 2 houses down. They may have something that will transform your life. And so that's where that power of a 5-minute conversation comes in. Give you pieces to help elevate your life.
And conversation is something that's almost becoming a dying art in a way. We've, for the past 2 years, been in forced isolation. Conversation even before that has been dying already with technology. Yes, we are more connected with people than we've ever been, but yet we are more disconnected from people than we've ever been. And the art of conversation is something that is almost like a dying art, and it's something that has power. It's something that is so important because, like you said, it can help somebody, it can guide, it can connect people. Conversations connect, and conversations face to face is the best connection. But you and I, it's a little bit difficult because big pond in the way.
A little swimming involved there.
But even I've noticed, even with my connections, it can sometimes be really difficult to even have the conversation, even if it is online. When in the old days growing up, you used to just go to each other's houses or pick up the phone and have the conversation. That doesn't happen anymore. It's a you know, emoji, or it's a little texting, or, you know, you got to plan the Zoom calls in to have a conversation, and that doesn't always have that spontaneity that used to happen.
It doesn't translate.
So this is a really wonderful thing that you're doing, is bringing back the power of conversation and really almost seeing if the world will listen and just sharing something powerful, and hopefully conversations will grow from that, and it can be a little seed that's planted and grow into be a little acorn and grow into a mighty oak.
And that's, you asked where else I see myself. And you talked about, that conversation and the lost art. And that's part of what I coach as well. And it's not just, hoping someone will listen, but sometimes teaching them how to listen. So many times when we're having a conversation, we listen just enough to hear when the person finishes their sentence because we're listening to speak instead of listening to hear and to interact properly, because there's so much to learn. So part of what I do as a communication strategist, whether it's for your personal needs or professional needs, we take a look at where you're struggling. Are you sending emojis in an email to your boss? Probably you need to work on that. Emojis, not so much in a professional setting. And so we'll take little pieces where the person is struggling, either personally, professionally, what have you. Get really in depth into the personality of the individual. Say you and I were working together. You're an introvert, but introverts are probably better candidates for learning with a communication than
We love
extroverts.
conversation. We don't like small talk.
You know how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
You listen for the sake of picking up those pieces. So it becomes a much easier process for me. No offense, extroverts. We teach you how to do that because introverts can't, go ahead and showcase. But they can. It's just it's harder. But we take your strengths and weaknesses. We figure out all the details with that, and then we take a look at let's say you're launching a podcast, right? And you don't know how to properly interview, or worse yet, you don't know how to engage your audience. And that's where my radio background comes from. Most people with a podcast, they're not listening, first of all, to their guests. They're listening to speak rather than listening to hear. And they don't know how to take that conversation and make it so that the listener is part of that conversation, the quiet listener. Most people that do a podcast or an online radio show are thinking about the masses of people tuning in. You'll never gain a following that way. You speak to one person, and you better get to know that person intimately. I do mean every detail. And you do that with podcasting, with radio. You do that in your interpersonal communication with friends, with family. You do that in the workplace. You do it with your emails. You do it with what you put on your website. And with your social media content, I guarantee you won't really be speaking to one person. You'll always be speaking to one, but they all start to connect. If you want to have something truly successful and truly meaningful, speak to one.
The power of the one.
The power of a 5-minute conversation. Don't speak at them, speak to them.
Mm-hmm. And this is really exciting. I look forward to hearing it and seeing this book and watching your journey as you go along. And
you'll have to come and join me on the podcast. I would just consider this your formal invitation to join me as a guest.
I won't say no. I'll say yes. And definitely just tell me when and where and I'll be there.
Fantastic.
I've really loved speaking to you, and I could carry on for hours, especially about whiskey and wine. That was good. But
carry on for hours over whiskey and wine.
I've really enjoyed it. You've dropped a lot of gold nuggets in there, and it's been really great to speak to you, to get to know you, to learn a little bit about your journey and your experiences. But before we go, have you got any last minute words of wisdom, guidance, a gold nugget, a thought, an idea, or a truth bomb even?
I'll give you one more. So you had asked me about the book, and it's called The Frog in Your Throat. The frog in your throat isn't that choking sensation where you can't get the words out. By the time you are finished, when you learn how to leap those obstacles, the frog in your throat is, there's a little cartoon figure. And it is, I'm not certain if anyone's seen it. You can look it up online with the Googles. There is a cartoon image of a stork, and hanging out of his mouth, you see the back end of a frog. He's eating the frog because life will swallow you whole if you let it. But the frog has taken the stork by the throat and is choking him to prevent him from swallowing him. And the caption reads, "Never give up." That is the frog in your throat. You figure out a way to keep life's storks from swallowing you whole. Never give up.
I love it. I love it. Never give up. I love it. I mean, it's just like, right, boom, we're done.
There you have it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I will share all your links, all Sheral's links will be below the video. When that book comes out, just keep an eye on the channel, and I'll put the links on the channel for when the book is out.
Could I offer a little free gift to your viewers?
Of course you can.
I will be doing group coaching coming up shortly, where a group mastermind setting for people to come in, whether they can make it live or whether they want to email questions and get the video and the audio the following day. But it's a great place for you to ask your questions regarding how to engage your voice, how to connect, how to speak. And I would love to give a 30-day free membership to anybody who watches this video and wants to reach out.
I'll put the link in.
Fantastic.
I'll put the link in the video. So yeah, and do take advantage of this fantastic free gift. It's wonderful. And thank you so much for being with me today. I've really enjoyed it. I've gone way over time, so this is a lovely long video, but enjoy. And thank you for watching. And until the next time, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.